Welcome to the channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell icon to stay updated with every new story. My son, please, win this and I'll give you $100 million, the billionaire said, smirking. Lose and your mother is done here forever. Silence. The kind that slices through a room like broken glass. Forks froze mid-bite. The air inside Viridian Lounge, one of San Francisco's most expensive restaurants, turned heavy. All eyes shifted to the 10-year-old black girl standing beside her mother, a waitress in plain black, name tag crooked, hands gripping a tray. The girl's name was Maya. She had quiet strength, sharp eyes, calm breath, as if this humiliation wasn't new. But tonight was different because tonight she chose to answer back. Her voice didn't crack. I'll play. The crowd chuckled, not understanding this wasn't just chess. This was history. Power wrapped in silence. A black story unfolding on polished mahogany between a girl with nothing and a man who thought he owned everything. Richard Sterling, billionaire CEO, leaned back with theatrical arrogance. He was used to winning, control. He had no idea what was coming. The waitress Elena wanted to speak, to stop it, but Maya touched her hand gently. Let me. And the game began. The setting. Viridian Lounge wasn't just a restaurant, it was performance, a stage where San Francisco's elite came to be seen. Soft, deliberate lighting, white linen tables, modern art on walls that whispered money. Silicon Valley money. Richard Sterling had plenty of that. CEO of Sterling Tech, one of the country's most feared businessmen. He'd built his empire with sharp teeth, clean suits, and power brokers who moved markets with phone calls. He didn't come for food. He came for spectacle, control. Elena wasn't supposed to stand out. Same black uniform as other servers, same neutral smile. But she carried quiet dignity, shoulders back, eyes kind but distant. She didn't speak unless spoken to, didn't complain when waved off like a fly. But no matter how well she worked, she was seen for one thing first: black, female, working class. Her daughter Maya often waited in the employee break room, but tonight the sitter canceled. Maya sat quietly with a book, observant and self-aware beyond her years. She noticed how no one looked her mother in the eye, how certain guests only smiled when the manager passed. Maya had no idea her place in shadows was about to change. The confrontation. It began like countless moments Elena had learned to endure. Clearing table 7, she reached for a water glass, just as the guest's elbow knocked it sideways. She caught it midair, but drops landed on white linen. Did you spill that? Richard asked sharply. Not a question, an accusation wrapped in a smile. Elena, calm as ever. No, sir. The guest, of course, it's never your fault, is it? His voice carried loud enough to interrupt conversations. God forbid someone like you take responsibility. Someone like you. 3 words heavy with centuries. Some guests chuckled uncomfortably, others stared at plates. But Maya heard. She looked up from her book. Richard stepped closer. Tell me something. Do you even know how to play chess, or is that game too advanced? The pause hung sharp, precise. He didn't need to say, for someone like you. It was etched in his tone, posture, the way he looked down like she belonged under floorboards. Elena didn't respond. People like Richard weren't looking for conversation. They wanted compliance, silence, proof they were right about you. But Maya stood. 10 years old, just over 4 feet, blue hoodie and sneakers. When she walked across the floor, she carried something bigger. My mother may not play chess, she said, voice steady, but I do. Everything flipped. Power, control, the story's center. No longer about the billionaire's insult, about the little black girl who answered back. The pause stretched. Uncomfortable. Everyone realized this was no longer about spilled water. It was something more. Is that so? Richard leaned in, amused. Well, well, this is adorable. Elena's lips parted, but no sound came. Her hands trembled. She knew what this was. Not about chess, not even about Maya. This was a game, not the one with a board. Richard gestured toward the glass-encased chess set behind him. Marble board, polished obsidian and ivory pieces, custom European-made. Not meant for play, for display. Tell you what, he said, pulling out a chair. Let's play right now. Are you serious? Maya tilted her head. Completely. Let's make it interesting. Win, and I'll give you $100 million. Gasps, nervous laughter. But if you lose, his tone darkened. Your mother doesn't just get fired. She gets blacklisted. Never works at another place like this again. Elena stepped forward. Please, Mr. Sterling. She's a child. Richard didn't look at her. Let's see if she can back it up. Maya walked to the chess table, pulled out the opposite chair. She sat with unexpected calm. I accept. The room's weight shifted. No longer about teaching a waitress's daughter a lesson, about a child standing for her mother, daring the world to challenge her. The stakes. Let me be perfectly clear, Richard said, voice carrying like a verdict. If you win, little lady, I'll wire $100 million to an account in your name. No gimmicks, just cash. Gasps rippled. Phones appeared, hitting record with shaky fingers. And if you lose, he leaned forward, your mother is done. Not just here, anywhere. He turned to the manager, sweating in his blue suit. Make it official. The manager nodded. If she loses, Elena's employment terminates and she'll be marked ineligible for hire in any partner venues nationwide. Elena's knees nearly buckled, more than firing, erasure. Still want to play? Richard asked. Yes. One word, no hesitation. I want that in writing, someone called out. Richard snapped his finger. As his assistant appeared with a tablet, he signed his name, slid it across. Digital contract. One match, winner takes all. Maya read calmly, precisely, eyes moving faster than expected, and signed, Maya Jones. The lights seemed to dim. A 10-year-old black girl entered a $100 million wager with her mother's future hanging in balance. The game begins. The chess set wasn't meant for play. Italian marble board, handcrafted ivory and obsidian pieces, weighted and cold. Tonight it became a battlefield. Richard sat on the obsidian side, black. He liked striking second, studying, dominating. Maya sat opposite, playing white. She moved first. Pawn to e4. Simple, traditional, strong. How textbook, Richard smirked. Chess for kids book? Maya said nothing. Her face was unreadable. He responded sharply. Knight to f6. He wasn't a beginner, years learning at country clubs and investor retreats. He played fast, hard to humiliate. Maya didn't rush. She studied with quiet patience, unafraid of time. She didn't overthink, but didn't blink. Pawn to d4. Going for center, are we? He launched counterattacks, bishop early, pressuring flanks, testing reactions. But Maya was calm. She developed slowly, efficiently, setting foundations. Not flashy, but solid, powerful. People leaned in. Phones recorded silently. Nobody laughed anymore. Each Maya move felt intentional, mapped 5 moves ahead. She wasn't playing not to lose, playing to win. Richard's smirk faded. He tried comments, sarcasm, distraction, but Maya was locked in. She moved like water, and Richard felt resistance for the first time. Not pushback, the kind that waits, builds, and strikes when ready. The memory, each Maya move crept strange unease into Richard's chest. She wasn't just playing well, playing with instinct, control, clarity that doesn't come from books. It came from somewhere older, earned. It reminded him of someone. Frank. That name surfaced like a ghost. Over 30 years since Richard played him at Harvard, back when Richard was another arrogant undergrad, desperate to prove he belonged in rooms built for older money. Frank didn't belong either, not because he lacked talent, but skin color. A black man with brilliant eyes, steady voice, hands moving over the board like touching something sacred. Frank didn't posture. He just played. That day he beat Richard so badly, Richard stared at the board a full minute after checkmate. Not the loss that hurt. The way Frank made him feel like he'd seen intelligence that didn't fit his definition of power. The real sting came weeks later. Frank was gone. Removed from university rankings, disqualified over paperwork issues. They said clerical error. But Richard knew better. He'd heard whispers. Frank was too confident, outspoken, didn't know his place. Subtle, polite, institutional. It worked. Frank never played another ranked campus game. No apology, explanation, just gone, buried beneath silence. Now here was Maya, sitting across from him, eyes full of fire and patience, moving like someone who'd studied not just the game, but the silence around it. She reminded him of Frank in every way that mattered. Richard stared at her, realization tightening his chest. Elena wasn't just a waitress. She was Frank's daughter. Maya, his granddaughter. The man he helped erase had passed the game down. That legacy was sitting right in front of him, playing to make the world remember. The pressure, Richard Kessler didn't lose. Not at business, deals, chess, certainly not to a child. But 10 moves in, he felt something shift. Not on the board, in the room. Laughter faded. Whispers quieted. Even servers froze, watching as if the world's outcome hinged on a single rook. Maya hadn't flinched once. No fidgeting, looking away. Moves with precision, and in calm like she had all time in the world. That calm unsettled him. He leaned forward. You know, you can stop this right now. You don't have to finish. Maya didn't respond. You're brave, I'll give you that. But this is grown-up stuff, kid. You're way over your head. Still nothing. Tell you what, tapping a knight, walk away now. I'll let your mom keep her job. No blacklist, no press. We pretend this never happened. Fate. A way out. Deal wrapped in concern. He watched for hesitation signs, darting eyes, trembling fingers, caught breath. But Maya didn't move, didn't blink. Instead, "Is it your turn, Mr. Sterling?" The words landed like a slap. She hadn't fallen for it, hadn't paused to consider it. Across the room, Elena stood frozen, every muscle tight, heart thudding like war drums. She didn't know the game, but knew stakes. Once Maya decided to fight, she never backed down. Richard straightened, mask cracking. You realize if you lose, your mother is done. This isn't a storybook. You don't walk away with dignity and a lesson. You lose this, you lose everything. Maya finally looked up, eyes calm, unshaken. No, Mr. Sterling, you do. He blinked. The war had started with pawns and bishops, but now was fought in silence. Willpower. Maya was winning both. The trap. The board was now a tension battlefield. Richard had shifted to attack mode. Confidence, once casual, turned sharp, desperate. He sacrificed 2 pawns opening Maya's defenses, storming forward with his queen, knights circling like wolves. To outsiders, it looked like momentum. To Richard, dominance. But Maya knew better. While Richard poured attention into taking her queen, she'd been setting a trap. Quiet, invisible to the impatient, built not on flashy moves but smallest pieces, her pawns. 3 had slipped forward, unnoticed, dismissed as trivial. But Maya's grandfather taught her, a pawn isn't just a piece, it's a story, risk, the long game. People ignore pawns, he used to say, voice rough but warm, until one makes it to the other side. Tonight, that lesson was alive. Richard moved his queen, threatening her king, sacrificing position for control illusion. Check. Maya moved her king 1 square, calm and precise. No panic, collapse. Buying time for her left side pawn to take its final step, 1 square from promotion. It sat like a secret, waiting to be told. Richard didn't notice. Too busy chasing what he thought was victory. Until too late. Maya made her move. Her pawn reached the 8th rank. Queen. A pause. Then slow murmur through the room as realization spread like wildfire. She hadn't just survived the attack, replaced what she'd lost. Not with flash, but resilience. A new queen stood on the board, earned by a pawn no one watched. Richard leaned back in disbelief. His queen cornered, defense broken, plan shattered. "You were too busy chasing power," she said quietly. "You never saw the revolution coming." That's what it was. Not just a move, strategy, revolution. A moment where the smallest piece, overlooked, underestimated, changed everything. In chess, as in life, pawns are most dangerous when ignored too long. Tonight, one had become a queen. The end. Final moves came quickly, not because Maya rushed, but because Richard was unraveling. Once calculated strategies crumbled into instinct and impulse. He was reacting now, not planning, swinging wildly with rooks and knights, trying to regain control of a board that no longer belonged to him. Every piece he moved opened new weakness. Every threat exposed deeper flaw. Every time he looked up, Maya's eyes met his, not with arrogance, but clarity, stillness that made him feel loud and hollow. She wasn't playing to win. She was playing like she already had. 3 moves left, then 2, then 1. Checkmate. It landed like thunder in a quiet church. The room didn't cheer, no applause, only breath held then released, and like everyone waited for something bigger than a game to end. Richard stared at the board. The Obsidian King lay cornered, surrounded, defeated. He didn't speak. Fingers hovered above a bishop as if he could undo time, as if grabbing one piece would erase the shame building inside his chest. But it wouldn't. He had lost, not to chance, luck, to a 10-year-old black girl he thought was nothing more than a name tag's daughter, to the granddaughter of a man he once helped erase. Elena stepped forward, trembling. She had stayed silent through the whole match, watching with a mother's hope and worker's fear. Now she stood taller, not wanting revenge, but because her child had made the world see what she already knew. Maya stood slowly, pushed her chair in, looked Richard in the eye. "I didn't win because I'm special. I won because you forgot I was possible." He didn't answer. Couldn't. For the first time in his empire-building life, Richard Sterling had been beaten by something he couldn't buy, bully, or belittle. Truth, legacy, grace. As he sat in silence, cameras rolling, crowd frozen, a simple truth echoed louder than applause. When you build power on others' backs, it only takes one standing tall to bring it all down. Tonight, that person wore sneakers and braids and left him in checkmate. The reckoning. Richard Sterling didn't sleep that night. He sat in his penthouse study, city lights glowing behind him like ghosts he couldn't outrun. The chessboard still sat on his desk, frozen in the final position Maya had left. His king trapped, her new queen towering. The message undeniable. But it wasn't just the game that haunted him. It was the face, the way she moved, silence between moves. It brought back memories buried beneath layers of wealth, power, and pride. For the first time in decades, Richard opened a file cabinet untouched for years. Inside were Harvard photos. 2 ornaments, wins, losses, and 1 faded photo of a man beside a folding chessboard on the university quad. Frank Miller. The only black man in that year's chess club, campus's best player, and the one person the system quietly pushed aside. Richard remembered vividly. The way Frank won that day, the look on his face, not smug, triumphant, just proud. And how that pride was punished. Frank didn't return next semester. Rumors about code violations, unsportsmanlike incidents no one detailed. But Richard knew truth. They made Frank disappear because the image of a black man beating senators and CEOs' sons didn't fit the brochure. Now, 30 years later, that legacy had walked back into Richard's world, quietly, politely, brilliantly, through Frank's granddaughter. He picked up his phone. Not to lawyers' press, to his archives team. Find everything on Frank Miller. Full records, photos, matches, interviews, anything that still exists. When the report arrived next morning, Richard read every word. Frank had gone on coaching chess in underfunded schools, taught dozens of children in community centers, never competed again, never sought spotlight. But he had passed something on. A way of thinking, seeing the board. A quiet, powerful legacy now alive in Maya. Legacy they tried to erase but couldn't, because truth, like a well-placed pawn, always finds a way forward. The resolution, it was never just chess. It was a mirror showing what power looks like when questioned, dignity when it stands up, history when it refuses to stay erased. Maya didn't walk out of Viridian Lounge with just a digital contract and Billionaire's silence. She walked out having restored something that should never have been taken, not just for a family, but everyone ever underestimated, overlooked, or shut out because of how they look or where they come from. Richard Sterling kept his word. He transferred the money, all of it. No delays, loopholes, but he did something else too. He created a foundation, the Frank Miller Initiative, dedicated to supporting young minds in underrepresented communities. Kids who see the world like a chessboard and know they belong in the game. Elena now runs it with Maya by her side, not because they asked for favors, but because they earned the seat at that table. The lesson is simple. Never mistake silence for weakness. Never mistake youth for ignorance. Never mistake someone's uniform for their worth. Because the smallest piece on the board, the one you think can't move far, can't do damage, can't change anything, is the same piece that, given time and space, becomes a queen. And when that happens, everything changes. This story is about more than money. It's about legacy. Who gets remembered, who gets silenced, what happens when someone dares rewrite the rules. Maybe you felt like a pawn in someone else's game. Maybe you've been waiting for the right moment to speak up, push forward, take that step. If that's you, let this be your sign. You are not small, not powerless, and never out of moves.